Now, there's an interesting development that was reported by Vanity Fair back in July. Now, what's interesting about it is how it could be included into the investigation into Donald Trump's finances, led by, of course, Robert Mueller. Now, one of the things that we have not seen so far is Trump's finances, including his tax returns. He said, "Oh no, I'm under audit. I can't release my tax returns. I'm under audit." The IRS says, "No, you can absolutely release your tax returns. You're not under audit, and even if you were, you could still release your tax returns. That's not a thing." He hasn't released those tax returns, and of course, there's a lot of people that were harping on it. And look, I'm still interested in seeing them because there might be certain things in there that would be very interesting to see. Because I've considered the idea that he's hiding things. Now, maybe it's as simple as he's not as rich as he claims to be, and therefore it's kind of embarrassing to him. Because I'm worth $10 billion. Turns out he's worth, $1 billion or $500 million, $500 million. Super embarrassing, at least if you're him. Or it could be something else. Now, what's interesting, and what this Vanity Fair report looked at, and I think a lot of people ignored it when it came out, is the fact that, well, okay, they asked the question, is the key to taking down Donald Trump looking at his debts? Now, Bess Levin wrote back in July, quote, "The issue is not merely what Trump owes, but who he owes. As critics noted on the campaign trail, Trump's habit of reneging on contracts and suing his lenders meant that virtually nobody on Wall Street wanted to work with him, with one exception." Now, this exception is Deutsche Bank. Now, Deutsche Bank had actually loaned him hundreds of millions of dollars when nobody else would. And ironically, they still loaned him money even after Donald Trump pulled the most Donald Trump move of all and sued them. They still ended up giving him money, and that's very interesting. Now, we know, looking through Donald Trump's past, if you paid attention at all, that we know that he hates paying people, okay? If chances are, if Donald Trump owes you money, you are not going to see that money. For the most part. Again, it depends on who you are. But for regular people, for example, a contractor that he hired back in the 80s to build cabinets and slot machine holders and, other things for the Trump Plaza, they ain't going to see that money. That contractor was never paid for their work, okay? Not only that, but you had dishwashers in Florida, glass company in New Jersey, a carpet company, plumbers, painters, 48 different waiters, dozens of bartenders, and other hourly workers at his resorts and clubs, and that's from coast to coast, by the way. You had real estate brokers who sold his properties, and you even had several law firms that represented him in some of his different lawsuits, ironically, from some of the other people that he did not pay. He got sued. Hey, you didn't pay me the money you owed me. I'm going to sue you. I'm going to take you to court. He hires these law firms, and he doesn't pay them. So he's got a very, very long history of stiffing people. Now, what kind of billionaire stiffs people so much? It's very interesting. Now, and so, of course, because of this, he's well known for not paying people that he owes. So who's going to want to do business with him? Well, it turns out Deutsche Bank. Deutsche Bank is the only bank that actually wanted to, or was eager and available to loan him money. Nobody else wanted to loan him money. A lot of people didn't want to work for him because, again, he didn't pay them. So we have Deutsche Bank. Now, according to Levin, investigators probing the ties between Trump and Russia are now beginning to take a look at the president's accounts with his favorite bank, which also happens to have strong ties to Russia itself. And now I'm saying the Russian government. Okay, so that's very interesting. Now, the New York Times had reported that banking regulators are reviewing hundreds of millions of dollars in loans made to Mr. Trump's businesses through Deutsche Bank's private wealth management unit to see if these loans might expose the bank to a heightened risk. Meanwhile, The Guardian had reported that executives at Deutsche are expecting the bank will soon be receiving subpoenas or other requests for information from Robert Mueller, and that the special counsel's investigative team and the bank have already established formal contact in connection to the federal investigation. Now, right now, those subpoenas have not gone out. And there are Democrats in Congress, back on the 11th, that was a couple of weeks ago, or that was a week ago, some Democrats have renewed the calls to subpoena Deutsche Bank. So they still haven't done it yet. So the bank right now is preparing for it, right? They're getting up together with some documents. They're establishing contact in connection with this investigation. Now, if Mueller were to do a subpoena, what would he be looking for? Well, not necessarily sure. I guess you would be looking for different transactions, different deals, and you would be looking at who did those transactions, who was giving him money, who he was giving money to. So basically what this is that this is a game of follow the money. Now, Levin continues. She writes, over the last 20 years, Trump has received more than $4 billion in loan commitments and potential bond offerings from the German lender. Despite suing the company in 2008 when he fell behind on payments on the $640 million loan he was given to build Trump International Hotel and Tower in Chicago. Now, in order to avoid, again, this is classic Trump, and in order to avoid paying the $40 million he had personally guaranteed, Trump and his lawyer sued, arguing that Deutsche Bank is one of the banks primarily responsible for the economic crash. So, wait a minute. So it's like, oh man, I owe Deutsche Bank money. I am going to sue you because you caused the economic crisis. Again, Trumpian move. But weirdly enough, even after that, Deutsche Bank still wants to work with him. Interesting. Now, the bank, of course, before, during this whole suit, they actually filed a countersuit claiming that, quote, this is classic Trump. In the end, after threatening to take his name off the building, if he wasn't granted more time to pay, the bank gave him extra time. When he did pay the money he owed to the firm real estate lending division, it was with another loan he got from Deutsche's wealth management unit. So he's borrowing money to pay off other loans. What kind of billionaire has to keep borrowing money from different parts of the bank to pay off other parts of the bank? Very, very interesting. It's almost as if he's not actually rich, and that he's continues borrowing money, and that actually might make him in a lot of debt. He might be in a lot of debt to a lot of different people, maybe very powerful people connected to this bank, which again happens to be connected to Russians, to Russian interests. Interesting. Now, Trump subsequently moved his business from the real estate group to the private wealth management group, where, according to the New York Times, executives were more willing to deal with him. One of those executives was Rosemary Ralbeck, who has helped finance 3 Trump properties over the last 6 years, lending $300 million in the process. That amount is somewhat unusual by Wall Street standards, according to former and current Deutsche Bank executives and wealth managers and other firms on Wall Street had told the Times. So that is a lot of money. And you have people in Wall Street saying that amount of money is very, very unusual. We don't normally do that. We don't normally give out that much in loans. Weird. Very weird. In addition to Donald, Ivanka Trump is also said to be a Deutsche Bank client, as is Jared Kushner and his mother, who, per the Times, has an unsecured line of credit from Deutsche Bank valued at up to $25 million. In addition to Kushner family business, Kushner Companies got a $285 million loan from the bank last year. And because the Kushners and Trump have never shied away from conflicts of interest, in 2013, Kushner reportedly ordered up a glowing profile of Ralbeck in the real estate magazine he owned, with a disclosure about their connection at the very end of the piece. Apart from the Trumps and Kushners, Deutsche Bank also has deep ties to Russia. That's very interesting. In addition to settling allegations earlier this year that allowed $10 billion to be laundered out of Eastern Europe, Deutsche Bank had a cooperation agreement with a Russian bank called Veneshikama Bank. There's no way I said that right. Now, this bank is a Russian state-owned development bank that actually is the target of U.S. sanctions. That bank was the bank whose chief executive, Sergei Gorkov, Jared Kushner forgot to mention in that meeting in December. Very interesting. Here's another interesting thing. In May, federal prosecutors settled a case with Cyprus investment vehicle owned by a Russian businessman with close family connections to the Kremlin. The firm, Prevazon Holdings, was represented by, and you'll recognize this name, Natalia Veselnitskaya. Oops. Now, she was a Russian lawyer who was in the meeting with Eric Trump. Or, I'm sorry, Donald Trump Jr. Oh, here we go again. This is the person, by the way, that promised Donald Trump Jr. that, hey, we've got dirt on Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump Jr. said, if it is what she says it is, I love it. So this is the person that was promising dirt on Hillary Clinton during the election. Connected, of course, to this Prevazon Holdings. So, Now, they continue. Federal prosecutors in the United States claim Prevazon, which admitted no wrongdoing, laundered the proceeds of an alleged Russian tax fraud through real estate. Prevazon and its partner relied in part on $90 million in financing from a big European financial institution, court records show. What was that financial institution? Deutsche Bank. It all ties back to Deutsche Bank and the Trumps. Follow the money, guys. Follow the money. This isn't a conspiracy. There are money trails everywhere. And it seems like Donald Trump is not as rich as he claims to be. Why wouldn't he show his tax returns? He's not as rich as he claims to be. Why would he keep taking out all this money when he's rich, having to borrow $300 million and then not paying people back? He's not rich. In fact, I can almost guarantee that he is wildly in debt to many different people. Many different people. And dealing with Deutsche Bank, or the people who are borrowing through Deutsche Bank, or using Deutsche Bank to launder money, I'm pretty sure that Donald Trump owes somebody through that bank. This is not a coincidence. Not a coincidence. So, and look, real estate, we know, is a pretty easy way to move large amounts of money out of Eastern Europe. And look, the probe into Manafort also showed his own real estate deals, which could have been used as a front for money laundering. The Drake Hotel deal, which didn't materialize. But that Drake Hotel deal was also dealing with two Russian oligarchs. There's a deal. There's a deal. It's not a coincidence. And that's why Deutsche Bank is a wonderful target for the Mueller investigation. That's why he should get that subpoena, look into the finances, and see who he owes and why. If it's revealed that Donald Trump is in a massive amount of debt to somebody, well, already, that's almost the final nail in the coffin. Okay? Like any good investigation, Mueller should look into this, and he should follow the money. And it looks like Deutsche Bank, unfortunately for Trump, is preemptively getting ready for Mueller to do just that. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.